It's the Art of Action Figures, taking a look at this Tonsen Art Toys Tank Top Future Trunks, their second full SHFiguarts style Dragon Ball figure, which, if you're like me and you got mediocre Yamcha, and frankly, this kind of miserable kid-era Gohan figure, is the final piece of the Z Warrior title card lineup from the Dragon Ball Z opening credits. Is that it? Are we done? Is it the Z Warrior lineup that we've all been waiting for? Protect the product during shipment. It comes in a shipper box just like your premium Bandai figures would. You can see we've already got a little bit of crumpling on the outer box. Let's see how the inner box looks. If you're new here, welcome. This is the Art of Action Figures, where we talk about action figures as art. And if you're not new, welcome back. I've got, as per usual, trusty hobby knife here. And in addition, I've got one more tool on hand. If you saw my Tonsen Kid Boo review, I think silicone oil is probably going to be in order. We'll go through all of that, see how we can fix up overly tight joints. And even despite the shipper box, we did get a little bit of box damage around the back. And here we have the SHFiguarts Boy from the Future Trunks box, just for a size comparison. We'll also be looking at how the figures compare to each other, how the heads interchange. The Tonsen box is just a little bit shorter, about the same depth, and a good bit wider. On the front, unofficial brand logos, Tonsen Art Toys Custom-05B. The picture for reference only, ages 15 and up. Warning, choking hazard, small parts, not for children under 3 years or any individuals who have a tendency to place inedible objects in their mouths. Two-tone figure photography, graphic art on the front, golden brown accent color. On the window, Tonsen Art Toys Warped Vengeance, kind of referring to Trunks traveling back to the future to defeat the androids. Not too much going on the rest of this box, just some more figure graphics, and then on the back, promotional images showing off some of the accessories and the range of motion in the shoulders. The forearm swivel, this pretty cool hands in the pockets accessory. Same warning as the front, and then in the very fine print, please do not put the small parts in the entrance and pay attention to the sharp part of existence. Little existential message from Tonsen there. All right, that's enough about the box. Let's go ahead and slice the tape. Even though the box is a little crumpled, slide the blade under the flap, push towards the back, and pop it out. Let's do a quick overview of the accessories that come with this version B Trunks. First off, behind the tray, we have two sword slash effects. There's a small, more jagged one and a larger, smoother one. They're done in sort of an opaque, pearlescent white with purple tips, and they look really good. You can use these together or separately, and you can use them for things other than sword slashes, and they just add a lot of momentum to your still images, action shots, so very useful. And in the tray, we can see the full loadout of accessories that come with this version B. Unlike the Tonsen Kid Boo, where version A was very clearly the anime color version, and version B, the manga version, Tonsen has pulled some shenanigans with their future Trunks. Here I have version A, the manga outfit colors with the light blue jacket, the yellow boots, the yellow belt. I don't know about the silver watch. But then version B has outfit colors from the anime with the darker blue jacket and the more orange boots and belt, and perhaps the black band on the watch instead of silver. And then the shenanigans kick in for the sword accessories and the head sculpts, particularly the base form heads. Version A got the anime sword and version B got the manga sword. The Super Saiyan heads could go either way. Version A has a matte pale yellow, and version B has a pearlescent, more golden yellow. B got the manga color base form hair that's a darker purple, and version A got the anime base form hair that's a more pale shade of purple. To summarize it, version A got the manga outfit with the anime accessories, and version B got the anime outfit with the manga accessories. If I wasn't planning to get both just for the different face portraits, I could see that being a little frustrating. I think what they're trying to do is probably balance out the sales between A and B. If they made one anime and one manga, my guess is they would sell many times more anime than manga. If you just want Trunks with the anime colors and you don't want to buy both versions, then the version I recommend depends on whether you plan to use the base form hair or the sword. In which case, I would say go with version A, because those definitely don't match the anime in version B. But without the sword and with the Super Saiyan hair, you could really go with either one and be satisfied, I think. Now, looking at the accessories for version B, he comes with 9 faces, so 4 for the base form head and 5 for the Super Saiyan head, which, gotta pause and take a moment and call out Tamashii a little bit. State of your face portraits, mate. He doesn't have any smiling faces, and he's got nothing to do in his base form but look mad. So, even though it's a newly built from the ground up Future Trunks, I love Future Trunks. He's my favorite character in Dragon Ball. And the portraits that do exist here are outstanding, but it's not enough. And it wasn't always this way. The original Future Trunks had 8 faces, complete set for both forms. And Tonsen matches that +1 on both versions A and B. Now, looking at version B, a neutral Super Saiyan face by default, pretty unique, comedic, shocked expression for the Super Saiyan head, smirking Super Saiyan, shouting Super Saiyan, gritting teeth Super Saiyan, and then for the base form, we have neutral, smirking, shouting, and gritting teeth and looking up to the left. And then, in addition to the Super Saiyan hair as it is, he comes with an alternate pair of bangs that's just a little more wavy and a little bit tighter with the spikes. I think this is maybe meant to be like Super Saiyan Grade 2, or maybe it's Super Saiyan 2, I don't know exactly, but we'll take a look at how it compares. This is perfect. They have the essential 4 for both forms, and an extra sort of character expression. That is exactly what I want to see from every SHFiguarts. And just to quickly compare to the version A, he has a neutral looking Super Saiyan face where he's looking kind of up and to his right, shouting Super Saiyan face, and a gritting teeth Super Saiyan face where he's looking kind of up and to his left. Then he has a neutral base form face, a shouting base form face. He has kind of this laughing base form face, which I think looks really cool and unique. Smirking and looking to his left base form. And then he's got this, like, surprised crying face, which is fantastic. So these two really give you some unique expressions. You lose the smirking Super Saiyan face and the surprised comedic Super Saiyan face, but you gain crying base form face and this laughing base form face. With the base form head, you also get an alternate windswept bangs accessory, which is really cool. And then aside from deco, the accessories are the same between the two. You also get a set of sword slashing effects with version A, and they're just more of a translucent plastic versus the more opaque for version B. He has 6 pairs of hands, including the fists by default, open palm, fingers together, flat key blast hands, a pair of hands for gripping the scabbard, pair of clenched finger, open palm hands, a pair of sword holding hands, and a pair of spread finger open palm hands. And in addition to all of the traditional pairs of hands, he has the Tank Top Trunks Essential Hands in His Pockets effect for recreating the DBZ title card, which is awesome. He also has these interchangeable forearms, which simulate the effect of removing his jacket, which is pretty cool. And finally, he has his sword, done in the manga colors for version B. It comes in its sheath and is fully removable the way a real sword would work. And he, of course, comes with a strap for placing it around his back, which has a pretty clever little engineering decision behind it. This little piece here is for attaching one of the swooshing effects to the sword. And last but not least, I ordered both versions A and B from Model Hobby Store, and they sent me the bonus accessories, both the Key Attack arm accessory and in the bubble wrap here, the Z-Sword accessory. I know there was a big fuss about these accessories being released as exclusively as they were, but I think the point was for sellers to be able to get them and include them with shipments that they sell out of their store. I don't think these were meant for individuals to be able to acquire outside of purchasing them through another third-party seller. So I wasn't really pressed to get them one way or the other. They're cool. I wasn't really expecting to get them with this order. I don't really know why Trunks comes with the Z-Sword. This accessory is cool, but I really want to put it on TN. I don't think it'll fit his shoulders because, you know, he's got those big shoulders. Whew! Let's take Trunks out of the tray, and I'll walk you through testing each of the joints and addressing any mechanical problems that come up. Top to bottom here, the neck, that feels pretty smooth. The shoulders definitely were a concern with Kid Boo. That's actually really nice on his left. Let's see how the right. That one's pretty good too. That's a little too much popping for my comfort level in the butterfly on the left and the right, so we will take some silicone oil to those. Hinges are fine. Elbows seem fine. Bicep swivels. Nice. Torso. Could maybe use a little bit at that lower waist joint here. The hips. Uh-oh, that feels pretty tight. Oh yeah, okay. We're gonna be, putting a little oil on those hips. Thigh swivels seem to be stuck. So we'll definitely go for some there too. How about the hip hinges? Not too bad on the hinges. Pretty smooth. The knees. Nice. And ankles. Swiveling just fine. How about the hinge? Again, a little bit of squeak, but nothing too serious there. It's pretty good. This feels better than the A version. Version A for me had really tight shoulder swivels, bicep swivels, still had the tight hips and thigh swivels, and a really tight neck. But this one's a bit better in the neck, the shoulder swivels, the bicep swivels. Oh, and the ankles. The version A had really tight ankles, but these are pretty good. First up, let's go ahead and hit the butterfly joint, which is inside the torso and down from the shoulder. So right below the shoulder, that's actually the socket. And what I'm gonna do is just peek around. Go ahead and drop a little amount in there. You really don't want to use too much. A little goes a long way. That's still a little too much wailing and gnashing. Let's go for a bit more. All right, that's loosened up nicely. All right, that one definitely needs it too. Nice. Okay, a lot smoother there. I do want to hit this waist. Less than a drop is what I usually say. There we go. Let's go ahead and get the belt back on. You'll have to tell me if I flipped his belt by accident. And while we have him disconnected at the waist, let's go ahead and get some oil on that hip swivel on either side. Oof, yeah, okay, that popping and cracking is really no good. That spells destruction for your figure. And that is a safe sound. So we're good on the right hip. Same for the left, just less than a drop there. And I always like to have a little cloth on hand to clean up any excess that I can see as I go. That's pretty good. Oop. Well, now that we're in here, we might as well just give that a little wipe as well. Okay, now comes the fun part of balancing joint tensions. This is maybe an advanced concept in fixing action figure joints, but it's something I've run into before with the SHF Ryu from Street Fighter 6 and his shoulder, where once you loosen one joint, the other joints that are supposed to hold less tension than the joint you've loosened may now be too tight. And so it's kind of this cascading effect of, I've lightened the tension on the hip swivel, and that's all well and good, but now the hip hinge is too tight. The ball joint that forms that swivel connection actually pops out instead of the hinge moving. So now what I'm going to do is just apply a little bit of silicone oil to the hip hinge, which is this cylinder connected to the ball here. And hopefully that gets the hinge moving a little bit more freely. I also want to wipe away the excess just so it doesn't drip all throughout the figure. Work that in a little bit, and there we go. I think we are good on that side. How about this one? I think this one's already okay, so I'm not going to mess with it. Usually, if you don't need to mess with it, don't mess with it, because it's better just for keeping your figures clean. And again, these have been engineered to have the tensions balanced so that when you do this, the hip should not disconnect from the socket. It should just activate the hinge. And now we're good. So I think the last point of business is this thigh swivel. And these are a problem because you can't get to them with the oil. So the way that this peg works is it's attached to this upper thigh and it goes down into the upper leg. And so it's not accessible from above. I've got a vessel with some hot water that I've just heated up with a tea kettle. I don't love dunking figures in hot water, so I try to avoid it when I can, but this one, I just don't want to risk snapping the thigh swivel, so we're going to go ahead and give him a little bath here. It doesn't take too long to soften that PVC. All right. Still not wanting to move very much. I'm just kind of wiggling it around. Oh, well, look at that. It just kind of freed itself. just give it a little pull, and there you go. Okay, well, that wasn't too bad. All right, and when all is done with the silicone oil, I just give the syringe a wipe with my cloth. I put this little red cap back on, and we're good. With that all sorted out, let's go ahead and talk about Trunks' details. I really like that Tonsen seems to understand the two colors of Super Saiyan hair that are used in the anime. Matte pale yellow for powered down, and pearlescent, more golden yellow for when they're powered up. And here we have the pearlescent golden yellow, and it looks really good. I like both. And if either Tamashii or third party wanted to honestly throw some straight golden hair on like an exclusive or something as a little nod to Super Battle Collection, I would pick those up as well. And the faces here I think look outstanding. They have a very specific Android Saga structure to them, with this more pointed nose and concave jawline that is taken straight from early Android Saga Yamamuro art. Especially, it does make this look distinctly like Trunks, because he was a new character introduced kind of during that period, whereas the Boy from the Future Trunks, I've seen people put those faces on Goku and it looks exactly like Goku, and maybe not so much like Trunks. His little bangs, while accurate, tend to obscure the face, so let's pop those off just for a second and we can see all the little wrinkles. It's pretty standard face printing at this point, but it does pretty accurately represent the art style, with little pen strokes under the eyes, above the brow. Nothing really on the mouth on this face. We'll see if some of the other expressions have any little creases around the mouth. I think this looks great, and the eyebrows are actually really well painted to match the hair. The sideburns here. I personally am a big fan of the way these faces turned out. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. Moving down to his torso, we have, similar to Kid Buu, the interesting design that Tonsen has done where the front of the torso is not connected to the back at all at the top, and instead it's just kind of the neck and the butterfly joints filling in the collar area. This design works pretty well. I do find the neck and the butterfly joints interfering with each other every now and then, and so I do think that there is some value in having maybe a complete sculpt here, but I do appreciate that this can increase the range of motion. We'll see when we go over articulation if it's truthfully done that. His tank top material is actually kind of a soft plastic, like the Cell Saga Gohan from Tamashii, and that's also pretty nice because it does free up the range of motion of the shoulders even further. However, another aesthetic comment that I've seen about this figure is he does have a bit of a Rob Liefeld shelf there. I don't know if it's just because of the way the overlay sits over the chest, but I think once you pose the figure, it's not quite so noticeable. I've just noticed a little bit of plastic scraping inside the shoulder here where it contacts the butterfly joint, so be careful with that. If you're swiveling the shoulder, it can kind of scrape up against that inside edge of the butterfly joint there. Probably needs just rounded a little bit so that it doesn't kind of cut into the shoulder as it's swiveling around like that. Has it happened on the other side yet? A little bit, not too bad. I think that the way the creases are sculpted on the shirt also kind of accentuate the bosom because of these kind of horizontal stretches in the chest area and then sharp cut to angled vertical folds going into The waist muscle sculpt of the arms I actually think looks really, really good, and it's a little bit more rounded than Tamashi's 3.0 Gohan, which I thought looks a little bit too blocky. Now, Dragon Ball muscles got really blocky towards the end of Z, but they maybe took it a little too far with that Gohan to the point where, like, his bicep is almost just, like, straight down. And we've got a very unique elbow joint here. It's a double hinge, but the top hinge and the bottom hinge have different shapes. Tamashi's double hinge elbows have this flattened cylinder kind of shape at both the top hinge and the bottom. Tonsen have gone and rounded the bottom hinge, and it just happens to kind of line up with this crease in the forearm muscle. Also, I think just incorporates better into that forearm muscle shape. It also allows the forearm to swivel. It looks a little better, keeps the sculpt from becoming just a bunch of blocks, makes the muscles a little more dynamic, gives them a little curvature, and also provides an additional function. So good little innovation there too. On his left forearm here, he has his wristwatch, which is so detailed. You can see what time it is. It looks like, what is that, about 9:25? The band is just straight black all the way around. And then for the belt, I'm not sure what the base plastic color is, but all of these colors we see on the outside do appear to be painted to me. We have the orange for this sort of scrunchy part, blue in between, and then silver and red for the belt buckle. It all looks pretty clean. There's a little bit amiss towards the bottom where the blue meets the orange. The pants, they've done a really nice job kind of integrating the waist and the upper thighs, but he does have kind of a 3.0 butt plate, but it's a little bit narrower than the 3.0s. I think that may help with kicking back range of motion. It's also a softer, not totally soft, but relatively softer material. The way that they integrate these folds with the cuts helps create a nice continuity. They do it on the front too. You can see the creases going down the thigh here. It just creates continuity across the cut, and I like that a whole lot. The thigh swivels are the sort of Ultimate Gohan 3.0 style. They don't have the thigh scoops that I think collectors have made their opinions pretty clear on those. I don't necessarily despise them, but I do agree they don't always look the best, and when they block the hinge articulation on the hips, it's a little bit of a nuisance. My eye accepts the cut here just like it accepts the cut here, and the hinge in the elbow. Real humans don't have that either. I think they're overthinking the thigh swivels a little bit. I do think the high cut thigh swivel looks good for characters with bare legs, like Full Power Frieza we took a look at. Pretty standard 3.0 Figuarts knees at this point. Pretty decent coverage on the kneecap. Obviously you get a bit of gapping, but I really don't mind that. And I think that for baggy pants, they really don't need to overthink it much more than this. Around the back, 3.0 knee hinges look pretty good. Now, as I mentioned, imports like Figuarts do use harder plastics for their joints, and you can especially see it in the hinges of the elbow and the knee here. Harder plastics tend to work well for joints because they have harder, smoother surfaces, but that also means they're a little bit more reflective. And then down to his boots, finally. It does appear that this orange is painted on, so I don't know whether they're solid mold with the lower leg. Orange over the top, and then little hits of brown over the toes and the heels. And finally, a nice solid white rim around the soles. Pretty clean. Little bit of brown bleeding over and then solid white at the bottom. No treads or anything. I'm not sure if those should have treads, probably. In addition to the differences between their outfits and accessories, there is a very, very slight skin tone difference between versions A and B. Version B has just slightly darker skin tone, and it's really hard to notice in normal lighting conditions. You could start to see it a little bit if I turn the lights way down, but I mean, under normal conditions, it's really not going to stand out, and I think that probably means you can swap the heads without too much contrast between the face skin tone and the body. Let's go ahead and test that. Yeah, I think that seems just fine. The faces, of course, can also swap. That kind of works. It is a little noticeable in the eyebrows, and especially in the sideburns where the hair connects to the face. Can do the same with the base form head, but again, kind of same results where the eyebrows and the sideburns kind of stick out. He is a little bit taller than Boy from the Future Trunks. Who was already considered to be maybe a little bit too tall. Relative to the rest of the line, here is the 1.0 Future Trunks. Staggering difference there. 1.0 is maybe a little bit underscaled for the line these days, but even for modern Figuarts scale, I do think Boy from the Future and Tonsen Trunks are a little bit too big. I'm not totally sure why they've made him so big, but I think it's probably because they are planning to reuse this body for Trunks' Bojack and Broly movie appearance, where he's huge. So trying to make that body work also for like title card Trunks, I'm not really sure it works, but I guess they also have branded him as like post-Cell Saga Back to the Future to beat the androids Trunks, in which case he would be, a little bit bigger. If this is pre-Room of Spirit and Time, then this is post. That makes sense. Post-hyperbolic time chamber. But yeah, it is a little bit weird for the title card appearance. As far as how your tank top Trunks will fit into this Z Warrior lineup, he looks oversized, and that is potentially true, but if you look at the characters around him, like Vegeta and Yamcha, who are kind of in the same row, I guess, it's actually not that far off. It's really Goku that stands out as kind of short, and that might just be because in the credits he's maybe meant to be standing well in front of everyone, and maybe it's from a lower angle, but this makes one of the other problems a bit worse, which is Piccolo here. Trunks comes up to like his chest in the actual credits. So we're going to just slide a little riser back here. And so some of the relative scaling in that title card is maybe thrown off by perspective and the camera angle. And now that we have Piccolo elevated a little bit, and Goku brought into the foreground a little bit, lowered the camera angle just a touch from it was up here, and we lowered it down to here. Trunks is actually looking pretty good there. Going over Trunks' articulation, he has a dumbbell joint from the neck into the head, and then another ball joint from the neck into the body, and all of that lets him look up just under 45 degrees, down about the same. He can tilt at the neck, maybe 30, 40 degrees, and because they're ball joints, they can roll 360 degrees all the way around, look any way you want, up and down at any angle you like, and it works really well. Shoulders are the 3.0 style butterfly joint shoulders. There's a ball peg going into a socket that is on another ball peg going down into the torso. The ball peg going in acts like a swivel, and you can swivel all the way around, and it's connected to a hinge disc, and it can go up pretty far. The butterfly joints work really well, but you do have to adjust them between the neck and the soft shirt overlay, but if you work with it just for a minute, you can really easily get him to do awesome things like cross his wrists out in front, cross his hands behind his back, and assuming his head's out of the way, very easily bring his hands together above his head, which all of that range of motion is really important for sword-wielding characters, so I think that's outstanding. And because these are ball joints, again, they roll all the way around and give you also the ability to, give him some nuanced shoulders elevated kind of poses, or pull the shoulders back, forward, pull them down as well. Love this shoulder setup, really good. Bicep swivel, double hinge elbows with that special spherical lower hinge go well past 135, which is fabulous. And as I mentioned earlier, forearm swivel around that lower sphere hinge. The wrists are typical Figuarts style swivel, hinge, ball joint combos, which let you put the hands, move the wrists in and out. And you can actually get pretty extreme range here if you just carefully feed the hand over the wrist cut, which is really good. Again, another really important feature for sword-wielding characters is the range of motion on the wrists, which is one of the places Tamashii Boy from the Future Trunks falls a little bit flat for me. If you saw my video on him, I ended up resorting to faking a lot of the sword poses by just attaching the hands to the sword and leaving the wrists disconnected from the body, but close enough. But these work really well. If you rotate the hinge around, very easily gives you a ton of range going up and down. I will say the right wrist is better than the left. The left is a little bit blocked by the wristwatch. But it's still really good. At least 2, maybe 3 ball joints in the torso give him a ton of ab crunch, past 45 degrees easily. Would like to see a little bit more range leaning back, maybe 30 degrees going back. Combined with the neck, he can almost look straight up, but not quite all the way. And the upper one is more providing the ab crunch forward more than anything else. Not a ton of tilt to the side either, maybe 30 degrees. Swivel at the waist joint, more so than the mid-torso joint. The hips are 3.0 style, similar to Ultimate Gohan from Tamashii. The waist piece is a little soft, but not like the Cell Saga Gohan. It's not quite that flexible, so you can't like crank his leg up to his forehead quite like you can with that figure. But you can get easily kicking forward 90 degrees, kicking backwards. He does run into the butt plate, but if you just hinge the leg out to the side a little bit, and then align the other leg and rotate him like 30 degrees at the waist, you can simulate a pretty realistic front-back split. So the swivels work well on the hips. The hinges work even better. Past 180 degree side split. Not too much kibble down below the crotch, but there is a little bit, so that's just kind of comes with the territory with this particular hip design. Thigh swivels, they work really well once you get them moving. Parts do kind of start to run into each other if you rotate them past a certain point, but they easily get past 90 degrees out, which is the most important. Double hinged knees. Again, kick past 135. That's really good. And they look good. The ankles are what I would call maybe a 3.5 ankle that we saw with Legendary Super Saiyan Goku and Full Power Frieza. It's also been implemented on the SHF Naruto line. They've replaced the upper swivel going into the boot with a ball joint going into the boot, and that allows you to kind of rock the hinge back and forth, which just gives you much more clearance to be able to pose the foot. So he can point his toes really, really well, like 45 degrees down. And then if you rock the hinge on that ball, if you rock the hinge back, he doesn't go up quite as far, but a little bit still, and then it just crashes into the boot. Maybe 25 degrees there, and then there's this toe hinge, which can help you with pointing the feet up. And that gets about 90 degrees, almost 90 degrees bend relative to the bottom of the foot. And finally, the swivel going into the foot combined with that upper ball joint gives him a pretty steep ankle rocker, 45 degrees easily. And he can get to about here with his feet flat on the floor. So overall, pretty excellent articulation. They've taken notes from Tamashi's best. They've tried some interesting and innovative things with the elbows and the way they cut the shoulder joints. And something that maybe doesn't get mentioned enough, everything looks really good when posed. It's kind of, again, going back to Legendary Super Saiyan Goku, it's hard to find a pose that he looks bad in. Everything is very fluid. The joints don't destroy the sculpt when you move them. There's no awkward parts crashing into each other. I've been seeing more and more down and dirty poses with this figure in Instagram albums and reels than with most, and I think that's a big part of why he just looks good pretty much no matter what you do with him. And that is an intangible quality. Can pretty much just move the joints however you want, and they're gonna look good. Even better once you start equipping some of the accessories like the sword and the swooshing effects and the different faces and hair. It's one of those figures that just kind of poses itself, and it's really, really nice to work with figures like that. Very, very few figures achieve that intangible quality of just such fluid articulation. This is just like a hand poser's dream figure. Because, yeah, you can just spend a ton of time manipulating these joints and continuing to look at a very, very striking figure. So yeah, top marks for articulation, both the range of motion and that fluid, effortless posability that very few figures have. Let's go ahead and try some of the unusual accessories. Let's try this removing the jacket forearm set. So you can see little peg goes into the forearms that are molded into the jacket. The full forearms pop off pretty easily, but not too easily at the elbow. There's a good amount of retention there. Let's take a quick look at this piece. They've done a really nice job. You can see they've actually molded separate forearm pieces and hands. That just gives you really clean color separation, so there's no paint. There's no need to like paint blue or paint skin tone one way or the other. It also means they match up with the figure directly. Let's see how easy this is to attach. Oh, this might be go heat it up moment. That's a little tight. I will say the jacket is a little bit heavy. It's kind of thick where the folds are all creased together. So I don't know about having it on one arm only, but yeah, I think you may want to heat the forearms just a touch. And when you put it on, go ahead and put him in sort of a Naruto running pose. And that'll give you the best angle to get those forearms slotted in there. And once it's all together, it's a pretty cool effect. Looks good from the back. I think Tamashii could take some notes and do something like this for Piccolo removing his cape, Goku removing his orange shirt or his blue shirt, things like that. I think, again, just give you lots of cool ways to interact with the figures. And the regular forearms go right back on pretty easily. Next, let's maybe give him his base form head. Base form head fits on there well. Again, the bangs, he could use a trim, I think. But for some reason, in third party right now, there's this trend of who can make the longest, thinnest strands of hair. And these are pretty good. They're long and thin, but they do get right in front of the eyes there. And so maybe accurate, but they could probably use a little bit of trimming in the sculpt. Okay, let's go ahead and try the other kind of display accessory, the hands in the pockets. So with these pocket hands, again, they've molded the hand and the pants separately, so you get perfect color separation. They're also labeled on the inside in case you forget which is which, R and R. They connect to the wrist pegs just as easily as any of the other hands, so that's good. And I find the best way to get them in position in front of the pants is to kick the leg back a little bit and swivel the thigh out. And that gives you the room to feed this little groove over the waist piece. And then let the thigh swivel come back around. So again, on the other side, there's a little channel at the top of the pocket piece. With the leg kicked back and the thigh swiveled out, you can just feed that groove up under the waist and then slide the thigh swivel back into position. And that's a really clean look. I think that looks awesome. They did a nice job with this. I know they're not the first to do it. I think the GT Trunks has the same effect, and maybe some of the Naruto or JJK figures have done this before. I forget which exactly, but yeah, pretty smart and looks good. Pockets bulge a little bit, but I think the effect is pretty seamless. You don't get a ton of range in the arms after you do this, but you can kind of position the shoulders as you see fit. Just be careful as the wrists are kind of locked in place, so just be careful not to yank on them. And yeah, that looks great. Really nice. I'm going to go ahead and actually borrow the anime color base form head, and let's go ahead and attach the version A sword. It's the same procedure with B. At the top, there's a little peg that goes into the strap, and that stays in place pretty well. And then at the bottom, they have this nifty little magnet. It could be a little bit stronger. It honestly feels easier to pull this off than the Boy from the Future Trunks peg. The benefit then might be that this is easier to reattach because you just kind of have to get it in the general location and it'll snap in place. So little trade-off there. Stronger magnet might have been best way to go, but I like where their head's at with that design. And you definitely cannot hold him by this. He's gonna fall if I try to do that. So instead of preventing the strap from detaching, it's more of a quality of life improvement for reconnecting it when it does. And you know, that's a worthy trade-off, I think. This is the alternate bangs for the Super Saiyan hair. The difference is the long, stringy front bangs go out at an angle. The number of spikes looks about the same, at least 3 upper ones and then a couple of lower ones. They're just a little bit more jagged, so I think it's maybe just more of a windblown hair. A little bit of a paint splotch on that tip, but other than that, I think this looks really nice. Key blast hand looks good. The fingers seem maybe a little short. I'm not sure what's up with that. This scabbard holding hand is just hanging on by a thread. I have him holding it right at the band where it's a little bit thicker, and then I have the peg just kind of resting on top of the hand. And that's working for now. I don't have any kind of sticky tack. I don't like putting sticky things on the figures. It's hanging on okay. Pretty much just exactly in that position, and I don't know if I can get it to do it again, to be honest. Let's see here. Oh yeah, okay. Well, pro tip, if you want him to hold the sheath, this is a good spot to do it. It's a little bit tighter. Otherwise, the the hand is a little too wide of a grip. But that looks pretty good. I think the sheath holding hand is pretty smart. I like giving the figures more ways to interact with the accessories they come with. It's really a simple way to add value to your figure just with a pair of hands. So, well done with that. And here's just a little homage to one of my favorite Future Trunks drawings. I wanted to do this pose with the boy from the Future Trunks, but I couldn't quite get the leg high enough and the body to crunch forward enough for him to reach his arms all the way around his leg. But Tonsen Trunks here has just enough ab crunch and high kick in his leg to be able to at least get his hands around his knee, not quite down around his shin as it should be, but I think this is a pretty good approximation. Just don't look too close at what's going on with his hands here. And I've taken a little liberty with the face expression, just because I really like this smirking and looking to the side face. I think this one turned out great. I love the windy base form hair that comes with version A. That's a really nice piece. The sword, so far, I found it does disconnect pretty easily, but like I said, the improvement is in making it easier to reattach once you have the figure posed where you want. So just a little casual base form Trunks. Put the sword in his hands, you can remove the pommel. A little bit tight the first time, but go for another classic drawing. Super Saiyan Trunks this time. Yeah, I think this looks really nice. I like this pose. I mean, who holds a sword like this? Trunks does. Why? Looks cool. Another one of my favorite Trunks poses. This one I did try with Boy from the Future Trunks, but I think it's one that I had to resort to disconnecting the wrist peg just to get this steep of a wrist angle. And I love this pose. Not only does it look cool, but it requires an extreme range of motion in pretty much every joint on the figure. He has to bring his right elbow pretty much to his left knee, which takes butterfly joint range, hip range, knee range, and torso range to twist and crunch at the same time. That amount. It takes some extreme wrist angles here to hold the sword up and at this angle. Once you have all the joints in their extreme positions, you've got to angle the shot, and he's got to be carrying momentum both this way and twisting momentum kind of with the sword like this. And Tonsen gives you some really nice tools to help sell that effect. I've got the windswept bangs on him here to sell the action pose. I have the gritting teeth and looking up into his left face from version B, which doesn't exactly match 100%, but good enough with this particular lighting and angle. And finally, what'll really elevate it even more, the swooshing sword effect. Got a little diamond-shaped hole that very easily just slides over the tip of the sword. And I'm going to maybe angle that a little bit. I think that looks pretty great. And here's what he looks like under some bright lights. But you know me, I like my dark atmospheric lighting. And yeah, that looks amazing. I'll put the picture of Boy from the Future Trunks up next to this and we can compare them. And you see what good things can happen when you let your characters experience the emotion of happiness. It opens up a whole world of casual, character and personality-driven photography, which for me is just the refresher that Dragon Ball needs. Provides a nice break from all of the action all of the time, the slice of life, casual adventures, Gohan and Trunks collecting the Namekian Dragon Balls for some reason. And this is why when Boy from the Future Trunks comes with 5 faces, 3 of them the same expression, and no smiling face, it's pretty disappointing because yes, you can put him in cool action poses, but you can't do things like this. And I like to do things like this. I love the versatility of these swooshing effects. They not only look awesome on the swords, but can be utilized to just add a little more momentum to your shots. Here I've got this one kind of a flying trail behind Gohan. And I'm not too used to posing effects like this. So if you've got any tips, let me know. I've seen lots of cool uses already. I saw somebody posted a picture with the swoosh trailing behind the sword as it falls into Trunks' sheath like he puts it away in the show. And I thought that was a lot of fun. Overall, I feel like I'm just barely scratching the surface with these figures, but I've got to cut this somewhere or we're going to be here for another month. And I do want to get this video out and not be 4 hours long. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at Tonsen Art Toys Warped Vengeance versions A and B, I suppose, aka Tank Top Future Trunks, all sorts of color variations, faces, hair, hairstyles, hair colors, just so many possibilities with this figure. And as far as the A and B of it all, I've seen some comments that if Tamashii did this, splitting the accessories between 2 figures and mixing them up color-wise, people would complain about that. And I gotta say, if Tamashii, for example, released version A Goku and version B Goku, one with manga colors, one with anime, different color Super Saiyan hair with each, base form hair with each, different versions of windswept hair with each, 9 facial expressions with each that include all of the essentials and some fun personality expressions, cool effect parts, clever clothes interactions. I would buy that in a heartbeat and you would not hear a single complaint from me. Like I said, Future Trunks is my favorite character And having this much possibility with this figure, with this character, is just so much fun for me. It's totally worth it. I understand it's probably not worth it for everyone, but I will say overall, I've found myself gravitating more towards the faces from version A. Just realized I didn't go over the special effect accessories. I tried removing Trunks' shoulders here, but was having a hard time and gave up because there was just too much to cover. So maybe I'll post some pictures of that at another time. But for now, this has been the Art of Action Figures. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.